Jacob and Rebecca moved to a new town about a year ago. Jacob was offered a promotion, a perfect reason to relocate. And besides, this new place was much further south, with a milder climate that felt so much better. Of course, moving meant leaving. Old friends behind, thousands of miles away, and finding new faces to hang out with. It also meant Rebecca had to job hunt all over again. Luckily, she landed a decent office position right in the heart of the city. Pretty much right away, there she made new friends, including Chloe, who'd been with the company practically from day one. Chloe knew all the ropes, the little tricks of the trade, the hidden pitfalls, all that. At first, getting her to help was like pulling teeth, but gradually Rebecca started chatting with Chloe outside of work too. She realized Chloe was actually a fascinating person, and despite the old saying that it's tough to make real friends as an adult, they really hit it off. Chloe was super shy, 34 years old and never married, and she got so tongue-tied around new men that she blurted out these completely random comments that pretty much guaranteed no second date. She'd had a few flings that she considered serious. But from the guy's perspective, it was more about casual fun than long-term commitment. One evening, as Rebecca and Jacob were eating dinner, she mentioned that Chloe had apparently been ghosted by yet another potential boyfriend and wanted to get together at a cafe. Cafe? Huh? Jacob sighed. You sure she didn't mean a bar? I've never been there, so I can't say, Rebecca answered softly. But you know, Chloe, please. No wild drinking. Last time she came over with a bottle of wine after a breakup, she wouldn't stop whining for hours. Rebecca assured him it'd be nothing crazy, and the next day she went off to meet Chloe. In reality, though, Chloe had fibbed. She hadn't been dumped. Actually, the opposite was true. She was sick of being single, so she'd signed up for something called speed dating. This local group was hosting the event, a row of tables arranged in a circle, each with a single female participant. Guys would rotate around the circle, sitting down with each woman for a single minute while a timer counted down. When the buzzer went off, they'd move on to the next table. In the end, everyone decides who they'd like to keep chatting with. Rebecca had no idea she was walking into this until she caught sight of the arrangement in the room. Chloe, you dragged me to a speed dating event? She hissed out. Rebecca, please, don't be mad, Chloe pleaded. I really wanted to try this, but I was terrified to come alone. But I'm married, Rebecca pointed out, exasperated. You don't have to actually participate. Just ... I don't. No, sit and watch, Chloe insisted. But the organizers didn't allow spectators. On top of that, one of the female participants had bailed at the last minute, so they plopped Rebecca down at an empty table. She didn't want to make a scene or ruin the vibe for people who came in good spirits. So she figured fine, she'd just tell every guy who sat down that she was happily married. Case closed. The host explained the rules one more time, turned on some music, and gave the go-ahead for the first round of mini dates. Sure enough, the first few guys who dashed over, showering her with compliments, got a quick flash of her wedding ring. That pretty much killed their interest. A few, mostly college kids, joked that a married woman could be more fun. But for the most part, she just sat there feeling awkward, counting down the minutes until this ordeal would end. Meanwhile, she glanced over at Chloe, who was stumbling through each introduction, looking petrified. Finally, it was the last round, and a tall, handsome man in his 40s slid into the seat across from Rebecca. He gave her a dazzling smile that made her pause for a second. She didn't flash the ring right away. I noticed you the moment you walked in, he said in a smooth voice. I also noticed your ring, so don't worry, he added, making her cheeks burn. We're just chatting, right? That's not a crime, he laughed. He introduced himself as Ethan, and it turned out he was married too. According to him, his wife was totally cool with him going to these events for business networking purposes. A lot of the women here were in complicated situations, short on time, so these speed dates saved them the hassle. For him, it was a quick way to find potential partners for some project or another. They only had a minute to talk, but that was enough for Ethan to make a real impression. He was smart, charismatic, and undeniably attractive. And Rebecca felt a pang of guilt for feeling a spark with a stranger. It was like he could sense that. When time was up, he said, let's grab coffee tomorrow. I'd love your opinion on this restaurant idea I'm playing with. He set his business card on the table and left. Rebecca made it home early that evening, and Jacob asked how things went. She gave a vague, oh, it was fine, deciding not to mention the speed dating fiasco. No sense in stressing him out when she hadn't done anything wrong. But for the rest of the night, she was quiet, lost in thought. That business card burned a hole in her pocket. Over the next week, she was distant. Barely speaking, she started hanging out with Chloe even more often after work, sometimes strolling through the city, sometimes grabbing coffee. Jacob found it odd that his wife and her coworker were suddenly so inseparable, but he didn't think too hard about it. At least not until one day when he spotted Chloe walking hand in hand with some man in the park. Well, guess she's got herself someone new, Jacob thought, relieved that maybe Chloe would stop dragging Rebecca into her misery. That evening, when Rebecca got home, Jacob asked casually, "So how's Chloe holding up?" "Same old story," Rebecca sighed. "She spent hours crying on my shoulder." Jacob's jaw nearly hit the floor. He'd just seen Chloe, and she certainly wasn't in tears. She was all smiles, strolling with a new boyfriend. Something fishy was going on. He decided to keep an eye on Rebecca the next time she said she was off to meet Chloe. A couple of days later, he managed to leave work early and waited near his wife's office. He watched her walk out, head straight for a dark-colored car in the lot, and Clyde Dot, the man behind the wheel, kissed her and handed her a bouquet of roses. Jacob's blood boiled. He forced himself not to rush over that very second. Instead, he followed them in his car as they drove around town, eventually heading toward a hotel. That was it. He stomped on the gas, caught up to them as they got out, and stormed over. Furious, he slapped Rebecca so hard her head jerked back, then landed a punch on the guy's jaw that sent him reeling. "You traitor," Jacob roared at his wife. "Hand over your keys, because you're not setting foot in my house again." Rebecca, shaken, fumbled in her purse and gave him the keys. She opened her mouth to speak, but he silenced her with a sharp wave. He noticed the man's wedding band, too. With one last glare, Jacob spun around and walked to his own car. Back home, Jacob started gathering up Rebecca's clothes and tossing them in trash bags. As he yanked out an armload of her dresses, a small piece of paper fluttered to the floor. It was the same business card Rebecca had pocketed that night. Curious. Jacob looked up the company online and recognized the face of the so-called Ethan from the photos, a face he now despised. His next move was cunning. He managed to track down Ethan's wife and told her about her husband's little hobby. Turned out she had no idea, and definitely wasn't okay with it. One can only guess how she dealt with Ethan after that phone call. But there was more. Ethan's wife happened to be close friends with Rebecca's boss. Such a small world. Within days, Rebecca got fired from her job, and since she'd been working off the books, they refused to pay her the rest of her salary. Now she had no income and nowhere to go. Even Chloe couldn't help. She'd shacked up with her new boyfriend, leaving Rebecca out in the cold dot, and so, as fate would have it, Rebecca found herself totally alone, regretting every last decision that had led her there.